I started to write it in 1996, which was 15 years after the fact, and finished it about 4 or 5 years later. So because it was a project on the side, a personal project, it took me about 4 or 5 years to write.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add that the benefit of waiting, if I had written it right after, it would have been a story about the tactile experience of building these houses. With the benefit of 15, 20 years of hindsight, I was actually able to look deeper at the more personal lessons that came from that experience. I had this incredible experience building these houses. They were extraordinary houses, from 5,000 square feet to 29,000 square feet. So, I mean, the ladder is the 29,000 square foot house. The architects one time drew it up as a 30-unit condo. It worked quite well. I mean, that's a big house. So that in alone is, I think, a very interesting story. But a big part of this story is for my students. A big part of the story is about following your calling, really sort of seeing what really gives you passion and pursuing it when people around you are telling you you shouldn't be doing this. I mean, I had a degree in chemical engineering. I had acceptance letters from Harvard and Berkeley for public policy, and I had to sit down with my parents and say, I'm not going to Harvard, Berkeley, I'm taking a job as a carpenter in Nantucket. And a lot of people thought I was nuts, but I was taking control of my life and going on a path that I chose, and that made all the difference in the world. Oddly enough, I've just written an essay on this for the Harvard Business Review. They asked me to write it under the sort of humorous title of Everything I Teach About Management, I Learned Building Houses. And there are things in there about running a company that you can't learn in the classroom. I mean, we can talk about letting people go, downsizing, things like that, but if you've never looked someone in the eye and tell them they're fired, you have no idea what it's like to do that. Or the idea of trust. In construction, you get one bad subcontractor, and they can put you in the red, and it'll take years to get out. And so you need to learn how to trust, and that's something in your gut. I can't teach you in the classroom how to trust, and I can't read it on a resume. You have to learn it. There are other aspects as well. I teach the idea of the interconnections between rewards and organizational structure and culture and selections. All these pieces fit together. But then when you're actually running a company, you know, it takes on a whole new significance. I think that makes me a better teacher. I can walk into the classroom and I can teach about management because I've managed. I've actually run a company. I've felt the pains and the joys and the challenges of doing it, and I think that makes me a better teacher in the classroom. I started the first house, I wrote it like I'm a tourist. I was just having a ball trying it. Then I went back to engineering, hated it again, went back as a novice with more responsibility, and then became a master builder. I had a boss who walked me through it. Sometimes it was a very challenging relationship. He's a very strong personality in the book. At the core of it, to really do something like this, it's not just a job. I mean, I adopted a new identity. I adopted all the things that came with it. At times it was confusing. When I first became a carpenter in Nantucket, I'd go to the bars and meet, you know, the women that were coming down from Boston, that were my peer group in Boston, and now they, you know, they say, what are you doing on island? And I say, oh, I'm a carpenter, and they didn't want to talk to me anymore because I was part of the summer help. That, at the beginning, was confusing for me. By the end of the book, I was very proud to be a builder. That house was the pinnacle. I mean, 29,000 square feet. The scale and the scope, indoor pool, indoor gym, servants' quarters, 800 amp service, 17 zones, 4-pipe system. I mean, that house had a more sophisticated heating and cooling system than this building does. It was an extraordinary house. Steel infrastructure. I mean, it was massive and complicated. And I did do one more house after that, and it didn't match up. The reason I left, though, is actually much more mundane. My boss and I had a fight, and a pretty vicious one. He gave me a bonus of 1 week's pay. I was taking on more and more responsibilities beyond what we'd originally agreed to, my boss and I, and he was there less and less. And he was actually starting to do other things, some crazy things. He was actually a producer for a nightclub singer in Atlantic City. And it was because I was able to build these houses for him. And so I really felt that I deserved a major cut of his profits. And so one day he showed up at the job and he says, I have something for you. And he gave me this envelope. And I tore the top of it and looked, and it was the amount of 1 week. And it's in the book. I just stared at it, and he was a big man. He was a ferocious man, and he just said, "What's the problem?" And I said, "I expected more than this." And the language got quite colorful from there, and I really didn't know if he was going to kill me. I mean, he really, kill me is a strong word, but I didn't know if he was going to take a swing at me. And he growled at me. He said, "You take that check and you're going to bleep and put it in your pocket, and you're going to get in your car and you're going to think of everything I've done for you, and we will never talk about this again." And it was a revelation in the book that I had looked at him like a father figure, and he still was, but this was business. This is entirely business. And anything I was going to get from him, I had to get it from him. He wasn't going to give it to me. I decided also that I didn't want to dedicate my life to just building these monster homes. I wanted to do other stuff. So I went back to grad school. I originally applied to grad school in architecture and engineering. I was going to design and build my own houses. And I had this idea of recreational homes. If you wanted a second home and you liked astronomy, I was going to put a telescope in it. If you were into motorcycles, I had a separate garage for that. All these kinds of things. With this practical experience, I didn't get into a single architecture school. I got into every engineering school. I didn't get into a single architecture school. So I went to engineering at MIT. Environmental issues were hot again. I went back into it, started a PhD, and here I am. But I didn't read much until I went to grad school. I never knew I could write, and I love writing. So I can't imagine not having writing in my life. And if I'd stayed, I would never have written. So that, I feel, I definitely went the right direction. But I do miss building. There's a certain amazing satisfaction you get from building something. You know the guy Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs? Mm-hmm. I read an interview with him, and he's a very smart man. He said, people in the trades are the most self-actualized people he knows, because they come in, here's a problem, they fix it, it's out of their mind, thank you very much, they're on to the next. And the satisfaction with that is amazing, and the clarity. It's right or wrong, it works or it doesn't. If someone walked into one of my houses and said, "This house is a piece of junk," I'd look them dead in the eye and say, "You don't know what you're talking about." But if someone takes one of my books or articles and said, "This is a piece of junk," I'd feel compelled to say, "Why do you say that?" And so I miss that, and I miss, there's just an amazing feeling walking through a house knowing you built it, and I still go back to the houses today. I'm still friends with the owners and just love to walk through the hallways and all the memories that come back. The satisfaction is amazing. So I miss that, but I enjoy teaching students and I enjoy writing, so I'm going to give that up. Managers have a very important and powerful role in society. Corporations are the solutions to environmental problems, whether you like that or not. If corporations aren't developing solutions, there will be no solutions. Corporations will develop the drivetrain under your hood, the buildings we live in, the clothes we wear, everything. Corporations won't fully get there. Price signals will get them part of the way. But if you don't have managers who have a sense of a personal purpose to serve society, we're doomed. And so I would like to develop a course to really get business students to really cultivate that in themselves. Why am I here? What am I trying to do? What legacy do I want to leave? What's my purpose? And I really want to develop a course along those lines.